Ham Radio Crusader.
It's time to kick it with some chew bubble gum. And I'm all out of gum.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Freddie Mac, your Ham Radio Crusader, and I'm back with a new video. Once again, we are touching on DVSwitch. If you remember, about 5-6 months ago, I did a video, a two-part series of installing DVSwitch onto your AllStar Node, and we configured it for Brandmeister DMR. This time, we're not going to run into it cold like I did last time. Now I know what I'm doing. I know what the little tweaks are. And this time, we're going to configure DVSwitch on our AllStar Node for the TGIF DMR network. I like me some TGIF. Don't get me wrong. Brandmeister's okay. Don't get me wrong. But I like me some TGIF. It seems like it's a pretty much worry-free network. But nonetheless, we're going to jump right into this, get to it, have some fun, learn something new, and do it together right here on the Ham Radio Crusader YouTube channel. Let's get to it. Okay, everyone, here we go. We're about to jump right in, but there's a few things you will need to do before you get started. If I haven't told you already, make a backup of your AllStar Node or GMRS Live node's SD card. Make a backup of that image so that you will have it. If something goes wrong during this process, you can switch out those SD cards, go back to right where you was, take the offending SD card, burn a new image on it, and start over once again. Also, it would be a really good idea to have the document open if you want. This will help you guide yourself through the process. This document will be attached in the description of this video. Also, this is the TGIF version for the DMR network TGIF. So it'll be a good idea to be logged into your page there so that you can get access to your security hotspot password. I also like to have the Supermon 2 or Supermon 1 page for the node that we're working with open and ready to access. Now let's go into the SSH session. This node is 192.168.1.135 and we're working with AllStar Node 576330. We're going to go down to number 9 and start a bash shell interface. This is an SSH session into your node. I've done several videos, and in the AllStar training series we discuss heavily on how to SSH into your AllStar Node. We're going to go to number 9 and start that bash shell interface. And let's always start off going CD space hit enter, and we've got that little hash mark there that lets us know we're in the root directory. We'll clear the screen to give us a clean playing field. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run this command line. I like to copy it right out of the document and go to the bash shell command line, right click, paste it in, hit enter, and let it download the DVSwitch server software. Now it asks, are you sure you want to run this on a working HamVoIP system? 1 for yes, 2 for no. And of course we do, because we're going to hit number 1 and we're going to let it finish installing. Now that the software has downloaded and installed, it's asking us very nicely, and twice I might add, to please reboot. So we're going to accommodate them. And at the command line, type in the word reboot and hit enter. Okay, now that the node is rebooted, we've reestablished our SSH session into our AllStar Node. We're going to go back down to number 9, start that bash shell interface up once again. Now, the next thing we need to do is go to this directory, user local DVS, and the second DVS you see there is the command itself. So let's just get there first and go CD and type in user local DVS, hit dir, see what's in there, and you can see right here is the command DVS, and we can type that in, and boom, this is DVSwitch, and this is the initial setup window. Do you want to change your language settings now? I've learned through experience there is no language settings apparently, so I'm just going to hit no, and we're going to start our initial configuration. This is where we enter our call sign, DMR ID, Brandmeister server, and AMBE. This is the TGIF version, so just bear with me. This process will ask you call sign, DMR ID, USRP port, hardware, AMBE for INI files. Hit yes to continue, and call sign. For this video, We're going to do KD5FMU, tab down to OK, hit enter. Now the CCS7 DMR ID is the DMR ID that you were issued by radioid.net, and mine is 314-3399. Hit OK. Now this is where it wants you to enter the SSID suffix, a 2-digit suffix to establish a difference between this connection and other connections you may have into the DMR TGIF server. I already have an 11, so we're going to change this to 14 for the purposes of this video. Just tab down to OK. DStar module, we're not going to configure at this time. We'll leave it at the default. And NXDN is the same. USRP port, we're going to leave that at default. Hit enter. And we're going to type yes. Now we're going to go ahead and come down and choose a Brandmeister server, but we're going to be changing it here shortly. Oh, there it is. Now, enter your personalized hotspot password configured via the Brandmeister self-care. If applicable, leave as default. I'm going to go ahead and type mine in, but like I said, we are going to be switching to TGIF. Okay, we do not have an external Ambi server or a thumb DV stick or DV3000. We're going to use the software vocoder, number 4. I'm going to tab down to OK. Input for initial configuration finished. We're going to hit yes to continue. Now the DVSwitch server is up and running. We can hit OK, and we can go down to number 2 to the advanced configuration. Configure other stanzas, frequency, power, lat, LAN, and location. This process will ask you the parameters in info section of the mmdvm_bridge.ini file. Reference frequency or the receive frequency. We don't have a radio attached to it, but we do have it attached to an AllStar node, and that frequency for this one is 438.0125. And the power is about 10 watts. We're not going to enter our lat and LAN just yet, but you can put yours in there at any time. And the height of this antenna is about 30 feet. And we're not in Iceberg, North Atlantic, but I am in Henrietta, Oklahoma. Tab down to OK. You can leave the description at MMDVM Bridge. Hit OK. And I wouldn't change that URL. I'm not sure the purpose of it just yet, so just leave it there. And now we're finished with that section. The ad hoc menu and macro, I don't believe there's anything that we do there, but we want to come down to additional DMR networks set up for DMR Plus, TGIF, and other networks, which, hey, yeah, we want to set up TGIF. We're going to do that here. Change the default DMR server. We're going to hit that, and we're going to change it to TGIF. Tab down to OK. And it's finished. So now we need to tab over to, back. Then we're going to configure the DMR server. Go down to TGIF network, hit enter. Current setup, as you see on there, is the default settings. Do you want to change this setup? And we do, because it's not correct. Now the server address is correct, the IP or DNS of TGIF server, that is correct. So we're going to tab down to OK, hit enter. The password is not the standard password. This is where you're going to go to your browser, log into the TGIF network, and go to self-care. And under self-care, you can see we're already logged in under 14. And there's the frequency that we typed in. But we want to go to the shield to user security, and we want to use this hotspot security key. Now mine will be masked out. You won't be able to see it, but you can hit this little button and copy it to the clipboard if you'd like. Go back to our SSH session. I don't think we're going to be able, yes, if you right click there, it will paste it in for you. Tab down to OK. Port of the TGIF server, we're going to leave it at the default. And we're going to wait for it to save those settings. We're going to hit OK. And we're going to go down to back. Change default DMR server. No, we've already done all this, so we're going to go to back once again. And back to the main menu. We're not going to do tools, credits. We're just going to exit the DVSwitch menu. Now that we've exited DVSwitch, we're going to reboot the entire system just for sakes and purposes. I like a fresh start. Okay, now our AllStar server has rebooted and we are back into our SSH session, but let's go back to a browser and let's type in, I have this particular port already on a non-standard web port, so I changed it from port 80 to 8081. So let's take everything out after that and type in DVSwitch. And you'll see the DVSwitch dashboard come in. You can see right here's our call sign, KD5FMU. The gateway ID is 314-3399. The repeater ID is 314-3399-14. We're in DMR mode. Our transmit talk group is 9 and our AB version is 1.6.4. Now we've got to change this transmit talk group, but we'll get to that. But you can see our DMR master network is the TGIF network. But our other modes that are enabled, these are modes, not the actual networks, they're the modes. DMR, YSF, NXDN, P25, D-Star. Now the networks that are enabled and in the system are DMR Net, YSF Net, NXDN, P25, and D-Star. But our main focus for the purpose of this video is going to be DMR Net because we're going to connect to the TGIF network. As a matter of fact, we already are. But we've got just a little more configuration to do. So we're going to go back to that SSH session. Go back to number 9, hit the bash shell, and type in DVS. Because we're already in its directory. I believe it's tools that we want, and we're going to configure the INI files. And it's menu number 32. We'll start with the analog bridge, the analog_bridge.ini. All right, as you can see right here, we're going to scroll down. The metadata below is used when ASL in the source is the source, since it does not have any concept of digital modes. The transmit talk group is set at 9, and we're going to change that to 314-3399. Because we're going to set this up so that we will bridge our AllStar node to our TGIF talk group, which 314-3399 is the ham radio Crusader talk group. Now, if you want to put it to a different talk group, this is where you would type it in. We're going to leave it time slot 2 and color code 1. There's some sound settings, audio settings, that we're going to change here in USRP. Okay, under USRP audio, we're going to use audio use gain. So we're going to change it from audio unity to audio use gain, underscore between each word. So the next setting we need to change is change USRP gain to 3. It's defaulted at 1.10, but we're going to change it to 3. This will enhance and make better our audio settings when it transcodes from analog to digital and vice versa. So we're going to comment out the USRP AGC line that you see here. We're going to comment it out. When I say comment out, we're going to go to the front of the line and put in a semicolon. That makes that line inactive. Then we're going to go to change TLV audio to audio use gain. And I want to say there's one more. TLV gain will stay at 0.35. So it's already there, so we're going to hit Control X, yes to save, and enter to exit. Then we're going to go down to edit the mmdvmbridge.ini. Yeah, I don't see anything we need to change in there, so we're going to hit Control X and exit because we didn't change anything. And then we're going to go on down to the DVSwitch.ini file, hit edit. We're going to go down here to the DMR stanza, and we're going to go down to where it says export TG. That means exported talk group. We're going to change that from 0 to 1314-3399, and this is going to be the talk group where we want it to connect to. Let's take a look at our other settings. This is for D-Star, which we're not going to address in this video. That's for NXDN, P25, YSF, and STFU. Simple Terminal Feature Update. And that's for ASL, and it's the basic port. So that's all we need to change. Hit Control X, yes to save, and enter to exit. Sorry, that's all we have to do in DVSwitch. But there are some files that we have to change in AllStar. So we're going to hit back, and we're just going to reboot the RPI server, which is the Raspberry Pi server. It's going to reboot everything, start us all anew. Okay, we're back into our AllStar node in the SSH session, but actually we're going to back out and take a look at those directions. Now that we've set those audio settings, these particular directions are for Brandmeister, and I'm going to write a separate paper for the TGIF. This is where we want to go to our etc asterisk directory and alter that manager.conf file. So let's get back in here, go to number 9. We're in our bash shell interface, and we're going to go cd etc asterisk. And we're going to make sure we have files, and we're in the right place. So let's go to nano manager.conf. We're going to scroll down and go to this admin secret equals. Now, for the purposes of this video, I set the manager.conf secret originally to password 2024. But after you install DVSwitch, for some reason, it likes to go in here and add the letters LLCGI into the front of that password. I don't know why. Maybe someday I will. But I always like to come back into manager.conf and take those back out and put my default password back to capital password 2024 or whatever your password is. Control X, yes to save, enter to exit. Okay, now we're going to go to server HTTP Supermon. And we're going to spell it right. Hit dir, and we're going to nano into the allmon.ini file. Now you want to make sure for your node that you've got a password in here for that primary outside public node, which this one is password 2024, but 1999 needs a password as well, and I always like to make it the same as 576330 or your primary public node number. 1999 is your first private node number. So make sure that those two match. Hit Control X, and if you made any changes, you would have to hit yes to save and enter to exit. Okay, now here's where we go and make changes to our rpt.conf file. But it's much easier to do with FileZilla. And I like to do a protocol of SFTP SSH file transfer protocol. I'll put in the IP address of that node that I'm getting into and change the port to 222. The username will always be root, but whatever the password is, you designated upon setup to get into the node. Then you can hit connect. And I'll come over here to file name, double click the double dots, and put me into the true root directory. Then we're going to double click etc, double click asterisk, and then scroll down to the rpt.conf file, click view edit, and discard the local file, and then download and edit a file anew. And if you're in a Mac, it'll open up like this, but most likely you will be in Windows and it will open up the Notepad editor. Now, I'm old, so I like to make these text files a little bit bigger so that I can manipulate them. And according to the directions, and they're right, we need to copy and paste these lines into the private node of 1999. Now, if you have other private nodes that aren't being used, they could be 1998, 1997, whatever, just make sure that you put this under that node. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here and select these lines. and it will end at archive dir equals var log asterisk temp. So copy. Now, according to the directions here, we want to paste them in just after the RX channel radio USB 1999 location. So let's scroll down here to, this is 576330. This is the primary node. We want to go down to 1999, and you can do that a lot easier if you hit find, type in 1999. We have 8 entries. And this is all inside of a text description. But right here it says 1999. Change this to your assigned node number. It's got brackets around it, so we know this is the beginning of the private node, which is the second node, 1999. So now we're looking for RX channel equals radio slash USB 1999, and right there it is. So I like to come down here just past this descriptor file, hit enter twice, hit arrow up once, right click and paste, and there are those lines that we just copied in from our how-to document. And we're going to leave them just the way they are. Now, here's a note that you need to make note of. When you did the initial setup on your AllStar node, you had the chance or the opportunity to change your standard bind port from 4569 to another non-standard number. If you changed that non-standard number, there's one more change you need to make in the rpt.conf file. And this is where we just pasted in those lines into the 1999 node stanza, but we're going to scroll all the way down. And right here you will see your nodes. 576330 is my public node. 1999 is my private node. Now I left these nodes, this whole node, as a standard port. But if I changed anything, let's say I went from 4569 to 4570, I would have to come into here behind the local IP address, type in a colon, and type in 4570. I would have to do that on both of them. Otherwise, they will not connect to each other in a process that we're about to do. I didn't change them from the standard, so I'm not putting those entries in there. But we've made those other changes, so let's hit File, Save, close this file, and FileZilla's like, hey, a file changed, you want to upload it back? Well, sure do. And that puts it right back into the rpt.conf. Now we can exit or disconnect our connection from FileZilla, close FileZilla, hit yes, and there's our Supermon 2 directory. Now let's go back here and check our directions. Okay, before we try to do this, we're going to reboot the server once more. We've rebooted our AllStar server, our AllStar node rather, and we're back to our Supermon 2 page, and we're going to log back in. Now that we've logged back in, you will see that since we hit all nodes, we have both nodes showing up in the address bar and on the page. And now here to the left of the text window, we have a drop down window where we can select which node. So let's go to 1999 and let's type in 576330, which is this node. What we're going to do is try to connect these nodes to each other. We've hit connect, and now you can see that there's a connection of 1999 to 576330, and there's a connection of 576330 to 1999. Now effectually, our TGIF DMR node should be connected and bridged to our AllStar node 576330. So let's go over here to our TGIF DMR page, and let's check self-care. Now you can see 314-3399, suffix 14 is connected. Time slot 2 to 314-3399. Now here's the rub. When I have made, it's been my experience, when I make my initial connection via DVSwitch on my AllStar node, if I talk first on my TGIF DMR side on my radio, I don't get through to AllStar. But I did just then. So sometimes you've got to key up on AllStar first to establish the bridge. So let's go back to our Supermon page and we can see that they are still connected. So I'll key up on my DMR radio on the 314-3399 talk group. And you can hear it on my analog radio. I key up on my analog. K85 FMU. There's a delay because it's a digital delay. You hear a little hum in there because they're interfering with each other, because I have the two radios, my DMR and my analog, a couple of feet apart, and they're probably on high power. But you can see we've effectively established a bridge connection between the two analog AllStar and DMR TGIF bridge that is now established. You talk on one, you talk on the other. K85 FMU, testing 1, 2, 3. That's me on DMR to AllStar, and here's me on AllStar to DMR. K85 FMU, testing 1, 2, 3. And there you have it, folks. It's just that easy. DMR to AllStar via TGIF. Well, you see, wasn't so bad. And DVSwitch is a handy little utility to use on your AllStar node. I've actually got some more videos that's going to be coming out soon about DVSwitch server on its own Raspberry Pi without AllStar. Interesting bridging implications there. I think you're going to like that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank these folks, somewhere here on the screen, for their support of my channel. I've got a few hits on the Buy Me a Coffee. It really helps support the channel, keeps things going, and I'm going to start traveling soon, most likely in April. I'm going to the More Expo, and in May I'm going to try to get up to Dayton to HamVention. And then in August, hopefully make it to the Huntsville Hamfest and get to camp out up there on Montesano. So any support you could throw my way would sure help out and keep the good content coming. It would sure keep the Ham Radio Crusader YouTube channel moving along in the right direction. We're here for all of you, and we like to think that all of you are here for us. So let's all come together as a ham radio community and keep this thing going and keep it going strong. I hope you got something positive out of this video and learned something that will help you in your ham radio endeavors. If you know of a better way to do it, put it in the comments. If I did something wrong, hey, put it in the comments. We'll talk about it. I will admit defeat if I'm wrong in a heartbeat. And sometimes I just don't know that I'm wrong. Sometimes I just know that it works or doesn't work by my experiences. So by all means, leave it in the comments. Drop me an email, kd5fmu@gmail.com. I'm open to all criticism, advice, and success. We all like that, don't we? Anyways, this is Freddie Mac, your Ham Radio Crusader, saying 73s, wishing all the good signals to be yours, and ham on, y'all.